The morning sun spilled across the entrance of Fort Harrison, a place where hundreds of boots, badges, and ranks passed through every hour. Yet nobody paid attention to the new face standing at the front gate. Lena Ward, dressed in a neatly pressed guard uniform, stood with quiet confidence beside the checkpoint booth. Her posture was straight, disciplined, almost too perfect for a simple gate guard. But no one cared enough to notice. All they saw was a young woman who didn't look intimidating. A group of civilian contractors approached first, laughing among themselves as they handed over their badges. One of them squinted at her namatag and chuckled. "Ward, huh? You sure you're in the right place? You look like someone who should be giving parking tickets." The others burst into laughter as if they had said something genius. Lena simply scanned their IDs, returned them with a calm smile, and motioned for them to proceed. Moments later, a pair of off-duty soldiers swaggered up to the gate, sunglasses on, ego even bigger. They saw the contractor's laughter and decided to add to it. "Hey, new girl," one called out. "They really hiring mall cops now." The other nudged him. "No bro, she's here to look pretty for the cameras." Their laughter echoed across the concrete. A few others in line smirked, some whispering, some shaking their heads in disbelief that someone so small and so gentle was assigned to front gate duty. They didn't mean real harm, not in their minds, just teasing, just jokes, but to Lena, it was a reminder of the world she stepped away from. A world where she carried a rank far heavier than any of their assumptions. Still, she didn't break her calm. She kept her voice polite, her movements controlled, checking each ID with the same steady rhythm. But her eyes, those told a deeper story. They held the weight of memories, discipline forged in battle, and a silence stronger than any insult thrown at her. People around her had no idea. They were mocking the woman who once commanded soldiers they admired. A woman who stood in war zones they only saw in movies. To them, she was just a guard. To fate, she was a storm quietly waiting for the right moment to rise again. The late morning heat shimmered gently over the base entrance when Lena noticed something unusual approaching from down the road. A black SUV, tinted windows, heavy frame, the kind of vehicle used by high-level personnel. Yet its license plate didn't match anything on the day's clearance list. She instantly shifted from routine mode into alert mode, though her face stayed calm and collected. As the SUV rolled to a halt, she stepped forward with professional courtesy. "Good morning, gentlemen. May I see your identification and your base entry pass?" The man in the passenger seat lowered his window just halfway, revealing dark glasses and a smirk. "We don't need a pass. We're expected." His voice carried arrogance, the kind that hoped intimidation would replace protocol. Lena didn't blink. "Sir, base rules require verification from everyone, even those expected. I'll just need your IDs." The driver scoffed loudly. "Are you serious? We don't answer to gate guards. Move aside." The tone was aggressive, meant to shut her down. Behind them, a few of the earlier mockers had paused, watching with amusement, whispering things like, "She's in trouble now, and someone's about to get fired." Lena stayed still, hand steady, voice firm but respectful. "Sir, without clearance, I cannot let this vehicle enter. If there's been a scheduling error, I can call the office to confirm." "Call whoever you want," the passenger snapped. "Do you even know who we are? You're just a security guard. Don't pretend you have authority." The words hit loud enough for people around to hear. Some nodded, as if agreeing with the insult. Others simply watched, entertained by what they assumed was a powerless woman confronting real power. But beneath her calm expression, Lena had already taken action. With a subtle movement inside the booth, she pressed the silent emergency alert, a feature only used when something felt genuinely off. She didn't raise her voice, didn't escalate, didn't show fear. But her training was awake now, every muscle ready, every instinct sharp. The men inside the SUV didn't notice. They leaned back, rolling their eyes, thinking they had intimidated her into backing down. What they didn't know was that Lena Ward wasn't just a guard. She was following procedures she once helped write, and within minutes, the base would learn exactly why her calm was more powerful than their threats. The tension at the gate thickened like fog. The SUV's engine hummed impatiently, the arrogant men inside tapping their fingers and muttering about incompetent guards. The small crowd around Lena had grown larger now. Contractors, soldiers on break, even a few civilians waiting for rides. Most of them were watching with folded arms, convinced Lena was moments away from being overruled or embarrassed. Then they heard it. First, a low rumble. Then, multiple engines approaching fast. Not the casual hum of base traffic. This was purposeful, coordinated, heavy. Lena recognized the sound instantly. Her heartbeat steadied. Reinforcements had arrived. 2 armored utility trucks pulled up, followed by a sand-colored Humvee. The vehicles came to a controlled halt, and a team of Navy SEALs stepped out, geared, sharp, eyes scanning everything with laser precision. Their presence alone shifted the air. Conversations died. The mocking smirks vanished. People whispered anxiously, "Why are the SEALs here? Did someone serious mess up? Is this about the SUV?" But what stunned everyone most was the direction the SEAL commander walked straight toward Lena. No hesitation. No confusion. He moved with the determination of someone approaching a superior. The commander, broad-shouldered, decorated. The kind of soldier who intimidated even high-ranking officers, stopped exactly 3 feet from Lena. The crowd held its breath. Then he did something no one expected. He saluted first. A crisp, sharp, respectful salute normally reserved for senior officers. Gasps rippled across the gate. Even the arrogant men inside the SUV froze, their confidence shattering as they stared through the window. "Ma'am," the commander said loudly, voice carrying through the entire entrance, "we didn't know you were back on base. It's an honor to see you again, Major Ward." Every mocking face went pale. Contractors who had laughed at her took a step back. Soldiers who called her a mall cop dropped their eyes to the ground. Even the chatter from the nearby booth died completely, replaced by disbelief and shame. But Lena didn't smile or act surprised. She simply returned the salute with perfect form. "Good to see you too, Commander," she replied softly. "Orders, ma'am?" He asked immediately. Before she could answer, the SEALs moved like a tide, surrounding the SUV with controlled aggression. Weapons not drawn but hands ready. The men inside the vehicle finally understood they hadn't threatened a weak guard. They had challenged a legend. The news spread through Fort Harrison faster than a radio transmission. By the time the SUV men were pulled from the vehicle and escorted away, the entire base had already heard one shocking phrase whispered from mouth to mouth: "The gate guard is a major." People who had mocked her earlier now stared with wide, stunned eyes as Lena walked with the SEAL commander toward the operations building. Some stepped aside automatically, giving her space the way soldiers do when real authority passes by. Others tried to piece together how a woman they had mistaken for a rookie guard carried a rank that demanded salutes from elite warriors. Inside the base, an officer finally recognized her. His face drained of color as he whispered, "No, that can't be Major Lena Ward. She retired." But she hadn't. She had simply disappeared from the spotlight. What most people didn't know was the story behind that disappearance. Years earlier, Lena was part of a top-tier Joint Operations Intelligence Unit, working closely with Navy SEAL teams during missions no civilian ever heard of. She wasn't just a field officer, she became one of the youngest majors to lead a classified rescue operation deep inside hostile territory. It was a mission many believed impossible. A team of 8 SEALs had been captured, held in an underground compound, surrounded by enemies. Lena planned the entire extraction. She predicted enemy routes, manipulated communication signals, and led the small rescue force herself. Under heavy fire, she reached the captives, broke their restraints, and pulled them out when most commanders would have called the mission lost. But the victory came with a cost. During the final escape, an explosion tore through the corridor. Lena survived, but several of her team did not. She carried their faces, their last words, and the guilt like invisible armor. She refused medals, turned down promotions, and requested a quiet post far from missions, far from decisions that haunted her sleep. And the soldiers she saved? They never forgot her death, so when the SEAL unit heard her emergency alert at the gate, they didn't hesitate. They came running because she wasn't just a former superior. She was the woman who had once walked through fire to save their lives. To the base, she was a mystery. To the SEALs, she was family. To herself, she was a soldier trying to breathe again. The late afternoon sun dipped low behind the command tower, casting long shadows across the pavement as the scene at the gate finally settled. The SUV imposters' faces pale, bravado vanished, were marched toward the security office, hands behind their backs. Moments earlier they had barked orders at Lena, calling her just a guard. Now they were silent, heads bowed, surrounded by men who knew exactly who she was. But Lena didn't watch them go. Her eyes were fixed elsewhere, on the same soldiers and contractors who had mocked her just hours before. Their expressions had shifted completely. Gone were the amused smirks and careless insults. In their place stood shame, uncertainty, and something Lena didn't expect: respect born from realization. One of the soldiers, the same man who had joked about her being a mall cop, approached hesitantly. His voice trembled. "Ma'am, I'm sorry. I didn't know." Lena looked at him calmly, no anger in her eyes. "Most people don't," she replied. "And that's all right. Doing your job matters more than what others think of it." Her words weren't harsh or triumphant. They were gentle because she remembered what it felt like to break under expectations. To be strong when nobody saw your strength. To carry stories that no one else knew. Soon, the SEAL commander returned and motioned for her to walk with him. They moved toward the operations building, past rows of soldiers who instinctively stepped aside and lifted their hands in salute. Each salute was crisp, sincere, and heavy with newfound understanding. Inside the commander's office, she was offered something she hadn't anticipated: a chance to return to the unit she once led. Not out of desperation, not out of duty, but because her presence still inspired the very men who swore by her leadership. "Your team would follow you anywhere," the commander said quietly. "They always did." Lena looked out the window, watching the base, her old world moving with purpose. She felt the weight she had carried for years slowly loosen, as if the universe finally whispered, "You can come home now." When she stepped back outside, the same gate she once stood guard over felt different. It wasn't a step down. It wasn't hiding. It was a place where she had rediscovered herself. And by nightfall, everyone at Fort Harrison knew. The woman they mocked in the morning walked out a major again by sunset.